He did it, and I was unable to walk for 2 days. Reddit cheating stories, a true tale of infidelity. Welcome to Tales of Infidelity. If you're new here, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. It takes just a moment, yet it inspires us to craft even more narratives. Kindly give this video a thumbs up, and now, let's dive into the story. I never imagined I would find myself in this position, sharing my narrative with the world, yet life has a peculiar way of revealing itself in unexpected manners. My name is Ria, and for a long time, I thought I had a flawless marriage. My husband, Samir, was a compassionate and diligent individual, devoted to supporting our family. After nearly a decade of marriage, the fire may have dimmed, but my love for him remained profound and unwavering. Yet, a shift within me had begun to unfold. Perhaps it was the dullness of daily life, the fatigue from balancing career and family, or simply the inevitable progression of existence, but I sensed an increasing void within me. I attempted to brush it aside, persuading myself that every marriage experiences its ups and downs, that feelings of unease are just part of the journey. It all began when I made the choice to enroll in a gym. It wasn't a sudden choice. I had just been feeling a bit drained and wanted to improve my fitness. Samir had consistently urged me to prioritize my well-being, so when I brought up the idea, he was entirely on board. He even assisted me in selecting the gym that was nearest to our home. That's where I encountered Arian. Arian served as the head trainer at the gym, and from the instant I encountered him, I sensed there was something unique about him. He wasn't merely a fitness instructor going through the motions, he truly cared about his clients. Upon my initial entry into the gym, a wave of nervousness and self-consciousness washed over me. Yet he was the one who effortlessly put me at ease. "You don't have to be perfect on day one," he said, offering a comforting smile. "It's about moving forward, not achieving flawlessness." His words lingered in my mind. It had been ages since anyone had addressed me with such genuine honesty, with such heartfelt warmth. Samir and I had settled into a rhythm of casual conversation and everyday habits, and then, out of nowhere, someone appeared who truly made me feel acknowledged. Initially, our exchanges were purely formal. He led me through my workouts, adjusted my form, and motivated me when I was ready to throw in the towel. However, as time passed, our discussions became more extensive, and I began to anticipate our meetings with enthusiasm. We engaged in a conversation about existence, aspirations, and goals. I discovered that he had once been a national-level athlete, until an injury abruptly halted his career. He discussed the challenges of beginning anew, of seeking out a fresh sense of purpose. I connected with that in a way I hadn't anticipated. I, too, sensed that a piece of myself had slipped away through the passage of time. The girl who once harbored grand aspirations, who laughed with abandon, who truly felt the pulse of life, had gradually dimmed somewhere along her journey. One evening, following a particularly draining workout, Arian and I found ourselves on the outdoor benches of the gym, sipping water. "You seem different today," he remarked, observing me closely. I paused briefly before responding. "I often find myself caught in a cycle, as if each day unfolds in the same way, repeating endlessly." He nodded, a look of understanding on his face. "Routines can affect individuals. But you are embracing a transformation, Ria. Arriving here and challenging yourself is the initial move towards liberation." His words resonated deeply within me. It transcended mere fitness. It became a journey to reclaim a piece of myself that had slipped away. As the weeks went by, my body became stronger, but something else unfolded as well. I began to smile more, to feel a sense of lightness. I wasn't merely transforming on the outside, I was evolving on the inside as well. Arian stood at the heart of that transformation. As I stood outside the gym, my thoughts drifted to him. His words, his encouragement, his presence, it all remained etched in my thoughts. I reassured myself that it was innocent, he was merely a companion. A source of inspiration. Yet, beneath the surface, I understood it was something greater. One day, following a particularly grueling training session, I experienced an intense urge to reach out to him, to share my thoughts and feelings with him. "Shall we meet for a coffee?" I inquired without hesitation. He appeared taken aback. Yet he nodded in agreement. "Of course, I'll wrap things up shortly." We visited a quaint little cafe close to the gym, and for the first time in years, I discovered myself sharing thoughts and feelings in a way that felt both refreshing and unexpected. I shared with him the depths of my marriage, revealing not only the surface-level details but also the emotional chasm and the profound loneliness that enveloped me. I didn't portray Samir as a bad husband because he simply wasn't. He was a decent man, yet at some point, we transformed into two individuals leading parallel existences, instead of being true partners. Aryan absorbed every word, offering no interruptions, no judgments. Upon completing my task, he merely remarked, "You deserve to feel alive, Ria." Their resonance lingered in my thoughts well beyond that night. Did I? I returned home that night and found myself lying awake, gazing at the ceiling. Samir lay next to me, lost in slumber, oblivious to the tempest brewing within me. I felt the urge to reach out to him, to express my feelings, yet I found myself at a loss for how to start. In the days that followed, I made an effort to distance myself from Aryan, persuading myself that I was merely swept up in the thrill of something fresh. Yet, the harder I attempted to pull away, the clearer it became just how much I longed for our talks, our shared laughter, and the way he made me feel truly acknowledged. Then arrived the moment that transformed everything. The evening was draped in rain, and the gym stood nearly deserted. I had just completed my session when the power flickered out for a brief moment. Only the two of us occupied the softly illuminated room, with the gentle patter of rain against the windows filling the air. I gazed at Aryan, and for the first time, I noticed the turmoil in his eyes, as if he too was grappling with the same feelings. "Ria," he began, but I simply shook my head. "I understand," I murmured. We lingered in quietude, the atmosphere surrounding us heavy with unexpressed thoughts. At that instant, I realized I stood at a pivotal juncture. I longed to express that I made the right choice right away. However, existence isn't quite so straightforward. Thus, my narrative genuinely commenced. In the days that followed that moment in the gym, I felt as though I was balancing precariously on a tightrope. My thoughts swirled with a tumult of emotions, guilt, excitement, fear, and an irresistible yearning. I repeatedly reassured myself that nothing had transpired, that we had merely exchanged a fleeting moment of comprehension, nothing beyond that. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware of the reality. I had crossed a boundary, not in a physical sense, but on an emotional level. As always, Samir remained oblivious. He arrived home weary from work, his mind occupied with the same familiar routines that had defined our lives for years. I attempted to maintain a sense of normalcy, yet I could sense a transformation within myself. I felt increasingly unsettled, more easily distracted. I found myself glancing at my phone, curious if Aryan had sent a message, despite the fact that we only ever spoke at the gym. One evening, Samir casually mentioned that he would be traveling for work the following weekend. "It's a conference," he remarked, hardly glancing away from his laptop. "I will be away for 3 days." I nodded, managing a smile. "All right, do you want me to pack something for you?" He shook his head. "No, it's merely a brief journey." That was the moment. There is no discussion, no emotion. Only a straightforward declaration of fact. I ought to have grown accustomed to it by now, yet in that instant, a pang gripped my chest. Once, we would have spent countless hours discussing everything under the sun. At this point, even a weekend apart felt insignificant. The day Samir departed, I headed to the gym as I typically do. Yet this time, there was an unmistakable shift in the atmosphere. Perhaps it was the awareness of impending solitude for the next few days. Or perhaps it was simply the burden of all I had been experiencing, but I found myself facing Arian after my session. He observed my uncertainty about what I wanted to express. "Are you all right?" I paused for a moment, then gave a nod. "Indeed, just contemplating." He observed me for a brief moment, then dried his hands on a towel. "Come on," he urged. "Shall we take a stroll?" I accepted it without hesitation. After finishing our workout at the gym, we strolled over to the nearby park. The evening was serene, the air invigorating, and the sky adorned with shades of orange and pink. "I feel as though I'm slipping away," I confessed, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Arian remained silent for an extended period. At last, he let out a deep sigh. "You are not lost, Rhea. You're simply on a quest for something that has eluded you." His words caused a constriction in my chest. But what if what I'm seeking is misguided? He halted his steps and pivoted to confront me. "Is it inappropriate to desire happiness?" I lacked a response. We perched on a bench, observing the sun gracefully descend beneath the horizon. I can't recall the duration of our stay, simply lost in conversation. Concerning existence, concerning aspirations, concerning all that we had relinquished throughout the years. It felt effortless with him. There were no expectations, no obligations, just a mutual understanding that we were two individuals who had discovered comfort in each other's presence. Eventually, a chill began to settle in. I felt a slight shiver, and before I could process it, Arian removed his jacket and placed it gently over my shoulders. It was a subtle act. Yet it filled me with a warmth that transcended the mere materiality of the fabric. "Rhea," he murmured softly, "I don't wish to complicate things for you." I gazed at him, noticing the worry etched in his eyes. He wasn't urging me, wasn't attempting to guide me toward a direction I wasn't prepared to take. He was presenting me with an option. And that frightened me more than anything, because I was uncertain about the choice I wanted to make. That night, I returned home, overwhelmed by a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Samir reached out to see how things were going, and I responded as if everything was just fine. Yet my thoughts wandered to other places. In the days that followed, I increasingly sought out Arian. Not because I intended to stray, but because he ignited a spark within me that I hadn't felt in years. We embarked on numerous walks, exchanged countless conversations, and with each moment, I sensed myself drifting further from the life I once knew. On the final day before Samir was set to come back, Arian posed a question that shifted everything. "Is happiness something you feel, Rhea?" It was a straightforward inquiry, yet it seemed as though the entire universe bore down upon it. I attempted to respond, yet silence enveloped me, for the answer eluded my grasp. And perhaps that was the crux of the issue from the very beginning. That night, I found myself wide awake, gazing at the ceiling, endlessly revisiting Arian's question in my thoughts. "Is happiness something you feel, Rhea?" It ought to have been a straightforward question to respond to, yet the stillness within me was overwhelming. Samir returned home the following evening, weary from his journey. He embraced me, pressed a gentle kiss on my forehead, and shared details about his meetings. I acknowledged with a nod, offered a smile, and absorbed every word. Yet, deep down, I sensed I was an outsider in my own abode. I realized it was time to choose a path forward. I found it impossible to continue existing in this state of uncertainty, caught between the life I had constructed and the feelings that had unsettled me to my very core. So, the following morning, I took an action I never imagined I would. I inquired of Samir whether we could have a conversation. He appeared taken aback, perhaps even slightly anxious. "Certainly," he replied, placing his phone down. "What seems to be the issue?" I paused, seeking the perfect words. "Do you believe we are content?" His brow knitted in concentration. "What do you mean?" I inhaled deeply. Do you ever get the sense that something has slipped away from us? Are we merely going through the motions? He remained silent for an extended period. Then, he let out a deep sigh. Ria, the journey of marriage can sometimes lack the thrill we expect. We have shared many years together. Everything evolves. However, that doesn't imply we're discontent. Yet, do we find joy? I pushed. He furrowed his brow, as though the reason for my inquiry eluded him. I believed we were. That was the moment I understood the true issue. Samir and I existed in entirely separate realms. For him, our existence was steady, routine, sufficient. Yet, it seemed to me that there was an undeniable void, something I could no longer overlook. I chose not to mention Aryan to him. That wasn't the focus. The essence was that I had transformed, that I could no longer maintain the facade of everything being all right when deep down I understood it was not. I believe we should determine what we desire, I remarked softly. Because I don't want to find myself a decade later, merely cohabiting with someone rather than truly living a life together. Samir gazed at me intently for an extended moment. For the first time in years, I noticed a spark in his eyes. Apprehension, sorrow, perhaps even remorse. He confessed that he didn't want that either. It was the most genuine dialogue we shared in ages. It marked the start of an unforeseen journey for both of us. In the days that followed, we endeavored to engage in conversation. Honestly, converse. We began taking walks, preparing meals together, and even reflecting on the early days of our union. It wasn't an enchanting solution. And it didn't dispel the uncertainties instantly. Yet, it marked the beginning. In regard to Aryan, I made a decision. I visited the gym one final time, and discovered him in his customary spot. He perceived the choice reflected in my gaze before I uttered a word. I cannot do this, I informed him. He nodded, a subtle smile of comprehension gracing his features. I understand. I truly don't regret having met you, I expressed sincerely. You opened my eyes to truths I had overlooked for far too long. However, I must first understand my life before I can risk making any further errors. You deserve to be happy, Ria, he said. For the first time, I found myself believing that. As I departed that day, I carried with me the certainty that I was prioritizing my own needs. Not Samir, not Aryan, but I. Happiness is not determined by the company you keep. It's about discovering tranquility within yourself first. My narrative isn't centered around an affair. It's about awakening to the truth that life is far too brief to be spent in a state of automatic existence. At times, the most challenging aspect isn't the act of departure. It's about making the decision to remain and battle for what genuinely holds significance.